Yes, the Miniatur Wunderland in Hamburg is the world's largest model railroad, and I had a chance to visit them last fall in October. It was started by these two twin brothers, Frederick and Jared Brown, in the year 2000. They were running a nightclub in Hamburg at the time, but they wanted to do something more interesting and fun. Early on, they did a market survey interviewing 3,000 people about the idea of model railroad as a tourist attraction. They found that men loved the idea, but women were not so fond of that idea. So determined to build something that would inspire both men and women and children equally, they modified the focus not on the trains so much, but more on the miniature worlds. Perhaps a lesson we can all take in. This picture is a good illustration of that. Yes, there are trains in the background running, but the focus is on the people interacting in the scene here. Here is a quote that I think captures the idea in the early days. The project would be a technological challenge. The economic aspect would be very risky. From an entrepreneurial point of view, it would be plain crazy, but overall it should be possible. So Miniatur Wunderland in Hamburg is consistently voted as the #1 tourist attraction in Germany. Most people spend many hours and even days visiting. We start with some background information, the history and some numbers. Then we'll do a quick tour, look some technical information, how it is built and operated. And then finally, I'll give some advice of how to visit them. It was started in the year 2000. They went quickly modeling and building it. And they opened the first section after 8 months. And that had 3 parts to it, the Germany and the Knuffingen, which is a fictional city in Austria. And they were expecting 100,000 visitors, but 300,000 shows up the first year. So they feel this is a beginning of a success here. A year later, they opened the second part, which modeled Hamburg. And then a year later, they opened USA. And now they're up to 1 million visitors here. They took 2 years to build Scandinavia, which opens in 2005. And another 2 years, they opened Switzerland. And now they have 5 million visitors. Then they did really big projects now. So they spent almost 5 years building the airport. And at that point, when they opened in 2011, there were 10 million visitors. And in 2015, they get certification from Guinness that they now have the world's largest model railroad on hand. And they keep building these guys. They opened 2016, Italy, and now they have 15 million. Venice, 2 years later. Just after I was there, they opened Rio, and they just passed 20 million visitors. Here are some sections that's open when I was there. And you can see they're pretty big, 200 square meters or 2,000 square feet, Germany. Total, they have about 17,000 square feet now, or 1,500 square meters. And as I said, they keep building. Here are some numbers I thought was relevant. 10 miles of track so far. They have over 1,000 trains running. The longest train is 14.5 meters, or about 48 feet. They've installed over 3,000 turnouts, over 10,000 cars, both wagons and automobiles. Many of the automobiles are moving. They have ships, they have planes that run by computers, they have signals, they have LEDs, figures, trees, cost, and the most amazing number for me is the last one. They have 360 employees right now building and operating this layout. Here is the tour we're going to take. We walk up to the second and third and fourth floor, and we turn right, and then we start in the USA section. Then we move over to the Scandinavia section, keeps going through Hamburg, Germany, Knuffingen Airport, do Switzerland and Austria, and then finally we end up in Italy. Here is the USA section. It's about 1,000 square feet or 100 square meters. See the Rocky Mountains, Mount Rushmore, Grand Canyon in here, and Florida on the right here, Miami Beach and Las Vegas. Here is the Rocky Mountains, having a gold mining town with narrow gauge. Here we see the mining. And you see a lot of small figures, small detailed scenes that you spend a lot of time watching. Here is Grand Canyon. They built a trestle bridge across the Grand Canyon. And I have this as a video. Now we're going to continue a little bit more in the US section here. Highways, the trucks are running along the highways. This is actually a scene of underground of Area 51. And this is a good example where they're mixing prototypical scenes with fantasy scenes. Like here, here we see all the aliens that we have captured and keep underground. This is the Everglades, South Florida to the left there with Cape Canaveral, Las Vegas, and Las Vegas at night here. So every 15 minutes, it turns to night. It's dark for 3 minutes, and then it's light again for 12 minutes. So the days are 15 minutes long here. Okay, so now we move into Scandinavia here. This is the largest section, 300 square meters or 3,000 square feet. It has 16 ships actually traveling on real water, and simulation of the tides every 25 minutes. We're going to come in here on the lower end, look at northern Sweden, go over and look at Norway and the ships in Norway, and then eventually in Denmark over here. This is the large ore mine in northern Sweden called Kiruna. This is the world's largest ore mine. All the ores are trafficked out from here through real trains as well. And they go to Narvik, the northern seaport in Norway, which is modeled here. And this is, as I said, this is real water, and these are autonomous ships. So they actually navigate independently and autonomously on the water here. Behind here, it's the major bridge. This is a model of the Big Belt Bridge in Denmark, which connects two Danish islands. But here they actually connect Denmark to Norway. And of course, there's always traffic accidents and small scenes like this. Okay, so now we're going into the next section, Hamburg. It was opened in 2002, about 200 square meters, and you see a lot of trees, figures, LEDs, as well as ships in Hamburg. It's a port city. Here is the building that Miniatur Wunderland is in. So this model includes a model of Miniatur Wunderland. So if you peek inside this window here, we'll see Miniatur Wunderland. There are about 200 of these action buttons. So you can interact with the model. If you push this button, you start the train inside. Along here, you see this big port in Hamburg. Here is the famous Landingbrücke, where ships used to dock in the old days. This is what's called elevated underground, which is very popular in Hamburg. You can see how many tourists there are on this dock here. Hamburg is, as I mentioned, a port city, so there's a lot of harbor scenes. So I thought this scene was incredible. One of the newest buildings in Hamburg is this building. This is the new orchestra house. This also has push buttons. So if you open this and look inside this building, and the orchestra starts to play. And this building is actually a hotel at the top. You can actually see what's going on in all the different hotel rooms, which is pretty fascinating. Germany being a soccer crazy nation, there's a model of their Hamburg local soccer station. Could only fit in about 12,000 spectators here, or the fans. The actual stadium in Hamburg takes about 60,000 fans. And again, there's a push button here. You can push the button and you will score a goal. And it will be replayed on the video screen in the scene here. 12,000 fans sitting in the audience here. Here is another video. So let me see, I'm not going to talk over this one. All right, so we have walked through about half of it now here. USA, Scandinavia, Hamburg, Germany. Now we get into the fictional city of Knuffingen, and then we go into the airport here. So this was part of the first section that opened in 2001. And first 3 sections, they were built in 8 months. So there was a lot of ready-made kits and kit bashing. It's about 120 square meters, or about 1,200 square feet. It's about 20,000 figures, and you see 10,000 of them are in an amusement park. As you see here, there's a lot of trains in the scenery here. This is the fast-speed train in Germany from Intercity Express or ICE. Here is the amusement park at night. Knuffingen is the fictional city and also open as part of the first section. It's typical German city with a lot of cars, industrial areas, Alps in the background, churches, fire trucks, castles, and of course trains here. Most of these things were also kit bashed early on, since they built it very quickly. Very large main train station scenes. At night, as I said, every 50 minutes we have a night scene. And of course the elevation is emphasized here. Nice bridges and fire trucks. There's a lot of fire trucks on this layout, and they all operate and they run out and turn off fires. City scenes with the churches, old churches, 1 or 2 castles. This particular castle, which is also fictional, was kit bashed from 3 railway station kits. Okay, now we're getting into the airport here. And this is where most people spend most of their time. It was built from drawings of the Hamburg airport. It took them 6 years to get it operating. 70,000 lines of software is running it, and over 100 kilometers of cable underneath this airport. This is where the terminals start, and the 7,000 cars are parked in these parking garages. And the terminals are exact replica of the Hamburg airport, space with the taxis here. And inside, there is also exact replica of the inside of the Hamburg airport. Even the details of things like handrails, signs, furniture, even the garbage bins are modeled after the real airport. Check-in desks. And here we have the terminals. If you see something suspicious here, let me know. Of course, they have real timetables, arrivals and departures, and here we have another video.
Landschaft ist jetzt darüber geblieben. Mit Alpen dann nicht einzig weit, sonst haben wir da gefeiert und mit Jörg Bahnstein gerade ausgefahren. Aber auch das ist sogar das wieder.
We're moving on here. Austria is the smallest section. It was also built early on, 2001. Mountain scenes here as well, and an innovative way to model clouds. There are a lot of mountains, and the trains are running up in the mountains. Alpine sports in all 4 seasons. To get the elevation here, there's actually 3 different helices inside these mountains to move the trains up and down. There's also a famous cogwheel train that's able to climb the gradient up to 30%, made by Fleischmann, drove up directly 30% grade. Nice water scenes with the bridges. And of course, Arnold Schwarzenegger Museum. This is a miniature model of his birthplace museum. Switzerland was opened in 2007. It stretches over 2 stories. John Allen famously had scenery from floor to ceiling. Here we have that times 2, from floor to ceiling across 2 stories. Building this required quite a bit of building material like plaster and steel, and you see there was quite a bit of plaster and steel used here. They deemed that helixes would be too slow and unreliable, so instead they built a train lift inside this Matterhorn mountain we see right in the middle here. Across this layout, there are many of these push buttons, as I mentioned, and one of the most popular push button is to activate the Lindt chocolate factory. Push the button, the workers start making chocolate, and out comes a piece of chocolate for you to bring home. This button has been pressed over 3 million times, apparently. Another impressive scene is a concert by the Swiss DJ Bobo. 20,000 people in the crowd here listening to him. And again, you push a button and he starts playing a song, and some people start dancing. This is the same scene from the back of the stage where you see people camping up there at the top. The newest section when I was there was Italy, and this was my favorite section. It is by far the most detailed. The buildings now are all scratch built using 3D printing and CNC milling machines. And the way they built this was they sent a number of teams to Italy to study and document the places they wanted to model. It took eventually 6 years to complete the whole Italy scene, including Venice, which was the last part of it. And if you compare that to the first section, which is double the size, they took 8 months for them to build. So you can see that it was a lot more effort put into the Italy section. This is at St. Peter's Basilica here in the Vatican. This particular model, they had 22,000 custom parts in this particular building, and It took them 2 years to build it. Here is Colosseum in the background with a tourist bus and a river in Rome. And this is a nighttime scene. You see over Rome, you see the Colosseum to the left and the Basilica there in the center. Here's the main train station in Rome. Although this is huge, they had to cut out 50% of the trackage from the real thing. Here is a scene from the 5 villages, or the Cinque Terre. This is the first village, Rio Maggiore, which is the first of the Cinque Terre villages. And this village is famous for the train station actually goes into tunnels under the mountains on 2 sides here. And of course, they have to have Mount Vesuvius and Pompeii as well here. Mount Vesuvius in the model here erupts every night. So every 50 minutes you see an eruption simulating the lava flow, and they eventually settled on a silicon-based conveyor belt that transport the lava up and down in endless loops. Should they build Pompeii as it was before the eruption or after the eruption? So they actually did both. You see on the right, you see the ruins of Pompeii. To the left is Pompeii before the eruption, to the lower left there. And here is Venice, which opened a little later than the rest of the section. This is at its own little island here. And as you see, there's no trains, but it's still a very popular area to visit. This model took them about 35,000 hours to build. So that's as far as when I was there, they were complete. After I was there in October, in December, they opened Monaco and Provence, about 63 square meter. And then I'll come back to the from above section, but they started building out the South America section, with the first section opened here a few months ago. And then they have Central America planned and Asia planned. And then they are considering things like Africa, England, Netherlands. Here is the work they're doing on the Monaco. And I think this is from the Monte Carlo race, Formula One race in Monaco, where the stands watching the race here. These are, again, work in progress lavender fields in Provence. Now they were running out of space in this building. So they couldn't build anything more. So they ended up renting the next building over in the harbor in Hamburg here. They had to build a bridge over to the next building here, which was just put in. The Guinness World Record says a railroad needs to be connected so you can run to all parts of the railroad. They actually built a railroad across this bridge to the South America section here. This is a scene from Rio de Janeiro, Jesus statue and the Copacabana beach here. And they had a new approach to South America. So instead of sending their own staff to South America and build it, they actually recruited a local team who was local model builders in South America. And they recruited them to build these scenes and then ship them to Hamburg in containers. So far, it seems to be done an incredibly good job. So I think they're going to use similar approaches for the future sections. So that's the end of the layout tour. Now we're going to walk behind the scenes. So we will look at the model building they're doing, a little bit about the trains and the tracks they have, and then some interesting observations about how they operate the place here. This is the genius behind all the models, Gerhard Dauscher. He was a professional model builder. He worked for Märklin and Arnold as a young professional model and was recognized as one of the best in the world when he was in his 20s. When he was 30, he had his own business and already created many custom layouts for Germans. The two brothers, they wanted to recruit him in the year 2000, so 20 years ago. And he was so enthralled with this project, so he jumped on it. He abandoned all his existing clients and jumped on this opportunity because he found it more rewarding and very liberating. Liberating, he says, is in the sense that it's a much larger layout with a more modern approach and much higher ambition than an old German train station with 2 tracks, steam locomotive, and some low mountain ranges. As he said, that was Germany yesterday, or rather the day before yesterday. This Wonderland would be the world today and in the future. So he hired and trained the first 20 model builders 20 years ago. And since then, he has built and expanded the modeling team. The team has grown significantly, and they now have a specialized team working on water, on mountains, but also electronics and even software engineers. Here is their studio where the model makers build well-equipped, and they have specialized tasks, as I mentioned. Here's a guy working on a piece of mountain, I guess. So this is the mountain department where they crank out mountains. As I said early on, most models were kits, and the kit bashed a lot. But since airport, and especially for Italy section, everything is pretty much scratch built. Then a little bit about the trains and the tracks. So they run HO. The whole place is HO, and they run Märklin AC trains, and for DC trains they use tracks from Rocco, Fleischmann, and Pico. The actual locomotives are also from these vendors, but you see also many other vendors, including some American vendors for the American section. The narrow gauge part is Rocco, HOE. Actually, I wrote this as H0. That's how they say it in Europe, H0. They don't ballast or manually ballast the roadbed. They said they don't have time for that, so they use ready ballasted roadbed. They operate it all through DCC, and all the turnouts are operated with decoders. They used to manually clean the tracks, first weekly, then monthly, then more and more automation on cleaning, and now they don't clean it manually anymore, more than a special situation, but they run 45 rail cleaning trains that run continuously across the layout. This is the track plan for the US section. And I thought this was interesting because when I went to the US section, I don't remember all these tracks. You see quite a dense track, but you see a lot of staging track underneath. So remember, this is where you have that 48 feet train. And I think that's what these staging tracks are used for. So you see a lot of staging tracks under the layout. In this track plan, I would say maybe half of the track is just staging tracks. They typically hide it underneath. If we go back to this picture, which was from the US section, the Rocky Mountain, you can see here, this is kind of the door that goes into the staging tracks. So this is the door. We can see my pointer down here. This door is access to these staging tracks here. This is the Monaco section, and I include this picture because here you clearly see the staging tracks underneath. For all the, at least for all the newer layout sections, the staging track is built into the sections themselves underneath. So no special room for staging or fiddle yards. Of course, they have a lot of helixes. As I mentioned, for some of the biggest elevation ship like Switzerland, they actually have lifts instead, train lifts. I took this picture because you see that there's a lot of electronics in here, a lot of sensors. Here, you see that all kinds of sensors where they detect where the train is going. And of course, the layouts are controlled by turnout machines and turnout decoders. They use, as I mentioned, DCC, but they use a software called Railware. And I hadn't heard about it before, but it's a German-made software to run a large layout, or any size layout, really. And it does automation of the routes. It does turnouts, control signals, and detects trains. If you look at the numbers here, you can see this is 301 trains are currently running. There's about 800 trains that are in waiting position. Here, this is commands to the train. So these are DCC commands. And you can see we're almost at 3,000 per minute. So 3,000 commands are sent out on DCC. And these are turnout commands. So about 1,500 turnout commands per minute are sent out. And then this blew my mind. Over 200 amps are currently being used for the layout. They use this in their operating room. So here there's 6 people typically working with the operation of, you see all the track plans, all the detection, and monitors this. So there's no manual operation at all. All the trains are automatically routed. And it's not automatically routed according to a timetable. You could do a timetable in Railware, but what I found fascinating is that the trains, they negotiate the routes themselves. So train has a goal, I'm going to get to that station, or I'm going to go this route. And then the train negotiates through the railway software that, okay, you stop there, I go here. Essentially the way we do manual operation, but all that is done through a computer simulation, and that controls the trains. So these are the three front stations monitoring the train. This guy here in the back, he is monitoring the airport. And here's more video shots here. You see cameras here, as well as detection of the routes here. Here's the airport guy, video of what's happening. And on the left here, you see here's all the landing strip, the taxi, the terminals here. Okay, finally, how do you visit this place? Well, first, where is it? It's in Hamburg, northern Germany. Unfortunately, there are no direct flights from Seattle, Hamburg, but there are several connecting flights from London, from Amsterdam, from Frankfurt, and so on. You guys might have realized that these guys are very number-oriented. And you can see so far down here is the United States. There's been 180,000 visitors from the United States. And here we have a total of just over 20 million visitors so far. And then if you visit, schedule a full day or 2 full days maybe. It's a very overwhelming experience. Book ticket weeks or even months in advance. They had backstage tours, which I didn't know, but I wished I did. So they actually take you on the backstage tour and show you how everything works behind. Most of these are in German, but some of them are in English. And if you want to get an English tour, you should be looking at it several months in advance. Now, I know most people won't be able to go to Hamburg. Google actually has a street view of Miniatur Wunderland. And on this thing, you can look on Google Maps and Google Street View and look around. Here are a bunch of links they offer. They have a lot of information on their website, miniaturwunderland.com. They have a great YouTube channel. They have a lot of social media where they post new stuff almost daily on Twitter, on Instagram, and on Facebook. And if you visit, study it before, it's overwhelming. There's a lot of things to learn from them. They do a lot of clinic type presentations as well, how they operate and how they build things. And I think that's the end. So I'm going to stop sharing here, and we can take any questions or comments you guys have.
Well, thank you very much, Magnus. That was an excellent presentation and thoroughly enjoyable. Now, if I can only make it to Hamburg.
Magnus, I was there 9 years ago tomorrow.
Oh, wow.
And I shot a video of it. I'll post a link to my video in the chat room. It's amazing how the two of us saw almost nothing the same.
Oh, really?
my video is totally different from yours. I did a lot of detail shots, and
Yeah,
a lot
yeah.
of close-ups of things, and but it's an
So 9
amazing
years
place.
ago, had they opened the airport then?
The airport was open.
Okay.
I have pictures of Italy as plywood. Forming. Yeah, it's just plywood. So,
Yeah. Now it's incredible to see it.
So I'm going to be in Denmark next month, but it looks like there's a 0 chance of getting tickets. I'm going to be in Merle Turner. So just a question. You mentioned that the tracks are all connected, but I'm guessing that the trains mostly operate within their own sections, but they're all interconnected for the purposes of being one large layout.
Yes, you're absolutely correct. So the Märklin tracks is separate from the DC rail tracks.
Okay.
And I don't want to discourage you. If you're flexible on time, you can get maybe a ticket at 7 a.m. or maybe a ticket at 11 p.m. or something like that, if you're lucky.
Okay.
And you have flexibility.
I have a question. Are all the people we saw on all the grandstands actually scale model figures, and somebody is just constantly painting, or were they 3D printed in mass? How does that work?
And so I read that they have a strong partnership with Preiser, the German figure maker. And apparently Preiser has made some special figures for these guys that they also offer to others. But my understanding, most of them, if not all of them, are from Preiser. And I'm sure they have a discount if you buy 500,000 figures from them.
HO in scale.
Yeah,
HO in scale.
yeah. Yes, HR scale.
All right. Any other questions from anyone?
No, thank you for sharing.
And Magnus, thank you for all your work in putting together this clinic.
Yeah, thank you.
I personally enjoyed the nice touch of having the Millennium Falcon at the airport.
Yeah, I see there's a lot of comment about the Millennium Falcons, and yes, it did take off. Yes, it
did.
ran on the two rods, and it disappeared like all the other planes, and it came back.
Did they need to have a miniature Chewbacca climb out of it?
Yes.